first get a diagnosis of their primary cancer, or they get a diagnosis of recurrence, or the chemo's not working, the daytime hours are often spent like very focused on what do I need to do? How do I take care of my physical health? How do I get better? But maybe not so many daytime hours, or for some people many, but oftentimes our daytime hours are very practical. And our nighttime hours, when we're alone or it's dark, are more introspective and can often be very scary. And so I think a lot of patients come into the office and sort of expect us to take care of the physical piece, but then also help them sort out how to address that sense of overwhelmedness that comes with this process, and that sense of scariness that comes with that process. And so what words of wisdom do people share with patients when they say, I got the daytime stuff, but what do I do about the nighttime stuff? What do I do with my worries?
One thing that I have found helpful for some patients is to journal it, write those things down, and bring it with them to clinic, and we can talk about it. Or one of the more powerful resources I think we have is the Sisterhood of Caring, where we have patients who volunteer to talk to other patients. And I think you really can't get any better than that.
Yeah, I think that peer mentorship for many of my patients, especially, there's certain diagnoses, let's say advanced ovarian cancer, where, there's surgery and chemo involved and you're looking at 5 or 6 months of treatment. I have, patients who have found other patients who are 2 years plus kind of down the line. And it's really helpful to see someone who's finished and kind of gotten past that finish line of the original, the first preliminary treatment. So I think kind of seeing that there's a light at the end of the tunnel by seeing someone who's gone through it can be really helpful. And Paula Silverman is our survivorship coordinator, and she's wonderful. So whenever patients have any questions like this, I always refer them to her, because whatever you need, she can figure it out, and she has a resource for it. It's incredible. And we are so lucky to have her. She has, I think, changed the lives of so many patients. So I really appreciate that we have her as a resource.
Yeah, and I also want to point out, and highlight some of the work that, Anna is particularly spearheading with our Health Leads program. I think for many patients, right, I mean, this just a cancer diagnosis, it's not just that, it's everything, right? It's expensive. It's how do I pay my bills? How do I eat healthy? How do I even eat? How do I take care of my family, small children, or, aging mother who lives with you? And, so we have a lot of resources, more than we ever used to help our patients with this. And one of the main mechanisms for that is, through our Health Leads sort of resource identification program. They're incredible. I just personally can speak on behalf of some of my patients, the messages that I get from them about patients who were able to buy Thanksgiving dinner, or, have childcare for an hour or two, just to be able to have some time to think, or just things like that. And then the other thing too is, I think sleep is incredibly important. I think we all know, and the fatigue that patients who are getting cancer treatment feel is just, I don't think any of us on this call can even understand that. I know it must be so profound. And so, but I also think that things change, right? And your circadian rhythm changes, at different times in your life and when you're going through different things. And so the idea sometimes, I think that, that how things were for you might be how they are, during different points in the, cancer treatment journey, isn't necessarily the case. And I tell patients, I feel like some of my patients lay awake in bed and they're like, I just can't sleep. And I'm like, okay, fine. Like, don't sleep then. Like, get up and do something, write a letter to somebody, or, watch TV or cook, and then, maybe you sleep during the day. I mean, Winston Churchill was like classic for that. There's some brilliant people who had like, you know, different sleep schedules. You don't have to be like fit into that box of like sleeping from, you know, 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. or whatever. Like it's okay to like go your own way.
Yeah, and I would say, so just to reiterate what Dr. Stone was talking about, you know, I think a lot of times when you hear the word cancer, kind of everything else falls to the wayside, and you kind of ignore things in order to treat that cancer. And so, you know, initially there's going to be a lot of things that need to happen to get your care taken care of. But then as kind of the dust settles, you want to make sure that you are able to get those rides. And if you can't get a ride to the hospital, we need to know, because that's actually part of your cancer care, is making sure you can get to us, not just giving you the chemo when you get here. You know, if you are having trouble, like Dr. Stone said, with childcare, or, you know, you lost your job and you think you're going to lose your insurance. So these are things we need to know ahead of time, because we don't just want to prescribe you chemo and do your surgery. We want to make sure that we take care of you outside of the hospital, as well as, you know, take care of the cancer. And then one other thing that I think is important is that when you do get through the treatment, whatever that is, it may just be a surgery, it may be a surgery plus chemo plus radiation. When again, I guess the dust settles, you may start to feel things like you want your sex life back and you feel guilty because you survived cancer. So should you want that back? And that's okay. It's okay to want a normal life back, and it's okay to want a normal life while you're being treated. And these are things we want to hear about, because we do have resources and we can help.
So what I would say is this is such an important question, because it gives us an opportunity to engage in that exchange of information. So what I always try to explore with patients is, yes, cancer is a huge event in their life, but patients have lived through sometimes so many huge events. And what are other things that they have done when these other huge events have happened that have helped them? Whether it's their spiritual community, whether it's meditation, whether it's exercise, what are those things that you're already doing that you know work for you or have worked for you in the past? And let's revisit some of those things. Also, I try to, you know, talk about when we're facing such a huge challenge, let's break it down into smaller pieces. What's the next thing that needs to be done? What's our plan? You know, if it's just, you know, making an appointment with a social worker, you know, that's another piece to bring in, that, you know, a lot of times patients haven't ever gone to therapy and there's a stigma around that. So, you know, do we need to do that? Or let's just make the appointment for the scan. Let's go there. And then once we get the scan back, let's focus on the next step then. So those are usually the points that I touch on.